Welcome to Lifestyle by Design, helping you solve everyday challenges. I'm Karen Jacobs, a clinical professor at Boston University, an occupational therapist, and a Brookline Rotarian. And here's my co-host.
Hi, and I'm Andrea Calso. And today we're very excited to join you again after a brief hiatus. We're very happy to be back in the studio.
Absolutely.
On Thursday Night Live, where we present our program. And we're joined by two very wonderful guests, Karen Moss and Tracy Petruno. And it just so happened that we have two Karens tonight.
I know, and it's spelled the same way.
So it's only fitting, Karen, that we'll start with you to kick things off.
So Karen, we're very excited that you're on and our show, and it was great meeting you at one of the art shows at Boston University. It was sort of like two strangers across the room that ended up at the same table eating hors d'oeuvres. So it was great to get to know you, and we're thrilled that you're here. You're an artist. How did you decide to be an artist?
I don't remember ever making a decision about it. I think I just started drawing when I was very, very young. We didn't have television then. And my father would bring home big pads of newsprint with nothing on them, you know, what they would print the newspapers on. And I would draw while my parents were sleeping. So I was busy, and I just drew for years. And I just kept drawing, and when I was about 5 or maybe 4 or 5, my mother's upstairs neighbor was getting her doctorate in early childhood education. She later became a dean at Wheelock, and she noticed that my drawings were very detailed, and I was putting eyelashes on the people and fingers and, you know, buttons and all the things that a lot of kids maybe wouldn't notice or think to put down as a documentation of what they saw. So she said, you know, I think she's talented, so you should take her to some place where she can, you know, maybe have some classes. So my mother didn't drive a car, and she was willing to do this. She took me on the bus and in those days the trolley that ran down Center Street. There was a trolley car. We went into the South End, and I studied at Miss Dempsey's School of Art for Children in the South End. And it was very Victorian. We sat in little chairs, and everyone had a piece of paper and a brush and a little water, you know, little paint set. It was very old-fashioned when I think about it.
That sounds great.
So that was my first art school experience.
Oh, that's great.
And I just kept doing art.
So it sounds like, even though that was very structured, you were able to continue to be creative.
I just kept doing what I wanted to do, and I was fortunate to have a family that encouraged it. A lot of people don't want their children to become artists. My mother did, of course, say, why don't you think about something like maybe you could do like industrial design, or maybe textile design, or something practical, like maybe you could be a cartoonist for the newspaper, you know, because I did a lot of cartooning. But I kind of just followed my own instincts and became a fine artist, which is the least practical road to take.
But probably the most fun.
Well, it was the most personal, and I didn't have to answer to anyone's requests for that things look a certain way, or, you know, I didn't go into the commercial aspect of it.
So you use mixed media for your art, and I'm really impressed with your art. I've had the opportunity to go on your website, and your most recent art is really addressing social issues.
That's right.
And I'd like to have one of them come up on the screen, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that social issue and what inspired you to have your art really change from what you were doing previously. From our conversations, that seems.
Okay.
So let's see if we can take a look at this. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah,
painting?
well, it's in the back, behind the baby with the bandana around his eyes, is a forlorn housing project. It's kind of like, I think it's been vacated or closed down, and it's a very derelict area. This is a depressing scene. There's a homeless person with a cup on the floor, on the road, and the McDonald's arch, and then hard to see, but behind the McDonald's arch are a bunch of abandoned television sets, and there's a man pushing a shopping cart way in the distance back there. So the handbag the baby's holding is from the Neiman Marcus catalog. Those are those $3,000 handbags that we see in ads all the time. And the Minnie Mouse on the right is holding a stack of diamond bracelets. There's a suburban scene in the back on the right with a ranch house. So this is all about economic disparity, and that's something that's, you know, very much part of the political campaign, especially for the Democratic Party. Something that I'm very concerned about as we see the widening gap between, you know, the different economic groups in our country. The middle class is disappearing, and so this is something I wanted to focus on.
You know, it's very, as you said, shocking in some ways, but it depicts a message that's very powerful, and I think it's very important. You have another painting. Now that was a painting, or was that a collage?
That was a painting.
So I think we have next a collage, and I'd love you to
That's
describe
right.
that one too. So the next one we're going to have up. Can you tell us about this collage?
Okay, well, the homeless person actually is the same one that's in the other one, but he's made out of real estate section of the newspaper. So I got this idea that, you know, because real estate is something that we all think about. I mean, as living in one of the more expensive cities, and, you know, we're all aware of how it's hard for the students who live here and graduate here, cannot really stay here. It's very difficult for most of them to be able to afford to stay in Boston. And it's getting very hard for people to buy homes, and we've had a lot of trouble with banks. And so I thought making a homeless person out of a real estate ad was a good idea.
Yeah.
And then the people in the background, well, there's somebody sitting on a dumpster in the upper left, looking at a phone, and there's another guy in front of the McDonald's arch who's hanging out. I guess he's waiting for a bus. There's a big hamburger behind him symbolizing fast food. There's a kind of a girl dressed in 50s pedal pushers behind this angry dog. And then on the right, we have more of those sort of South Bronx type buildings, and women, they're figures that I found in fashion magazines. The one on the far right is a very futuristic, sort of spacey looking lady in a very crazy, you know, futuristic outfit, and the one next to her is a woman in a leopard skin miniskirt, but with the head of a dog. And I often do hybrids in my work. I'll mix together different creatures, you know. Not so much in this one, but that's a remnant of a period where I had a lot of different animals on human bodies or human heads on animal bodies.
So this art is very different than where you started with art, and you've had a lot of commission art. You've had many gallery showings. In fact, I think some of your art is now at RISD and at Smith, is that correct?
Well, they're in the collections, in the museum collections. Yeah, it's not up on the wall at this moment, but they've just had them delivered recently.
That's exciting. Now, are they on these social issues, some of the art that's
actually, RISD did take a very large one, a very long one. It's like over 7 feet long, and it's a panorama of an urban scene. And it's really about urban life as we head into the future. There's a lot of trash bags and a lot of hybrid animals and rats and dumpsters and, you know, fashionable people walking their dogs. It's a real mixture of all those aspects. And the Smith College Museum accepted 3 things from different periods. One from my period where I focused on explorers, you know, like Charles Darwin and Maria Marianne, who was a German. She was actually from Flanders, who studied in the plants and and insects of Suriname back in the 1700s. She's somebody I'm very interested in. I did a whole exhibit about her because she was like a pioneer woman scientist. And so I delve into things periodically, different subjects. 2 years on this and 2 years on that. And I move along, you know, whatever I'm interested in at the time.
That's wonderful. And at this point, we talked about this. You're really focusing on issues that are really important to you, and sharing your wisdom with others.
Well, I don't know if I'm sharing wisdom, but I'm sharing my perceptions of what's going on through imagery, which is what artists do.
Well, thank
I'll
you.
leave the wisdom to someone else.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I think you're very wise. Well, thank you so much. We're going to shift now to Andrea talking to Tracy.
Thank
so
you.
interesting. And your website, can you share, before we make that transition, your website, the address?
Yeah, KarenMoss.com.
Great, and it's such a fascinating website. I really encourage people to go there, look at it. I love your different periods of artwork, and I hope someday I'll have one of your pieces on my wall.
Thank you so much. I'd be proud.
That'd be
Karen
great.
is an avid collector.
Yeah,
I remember
me too.
at her when I was at your place looking around the walls, and there's always so much activity at your place that I'm usually caught up in conversation with you or the many other people who come. And recently we were staying late and we started to look at the walls, and I was blown away. And I actually remember you said that the first big piece of art you bought, you used like all your money.
I had no money for food.
But she spent on this one piece.
One piece.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
It was an Erte, and I got to meet Erte
Yeah.
when I was a graduate student, and it was very, oh my God. And I remember not eating. I think I ate saltines for
We need more people like that in Boston.
I love it.
Yeah.
But thank you. I'm so glad that we met each other and that you're here.
I
So
am
thank
too.
you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So now I'd love to introduce Tracy to the show. And Tracy and I similarly met across the table recently.
Interesting.
And I was very interested by our conversation, which prompted me to invite her today because I really enjoyed what she had to say and what I learned. Tracy is a happy home coach. She is the founder of Bliss This Home.
Bliss This Home.
And basically the premise is the idea of creating a happy home environment. And not your typical interior designer. I don't think we could necessarily put that label on.
Exactly.
But I want Tracy to tell us a little bit more about what this idea is, the psychology of a happy home, and what her work is really aiming to do with that.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. It's hard to even know where to start, but I like to start by saying that, first of all, I'm a native New Yorker that moved to Boston because I love Boston. Well, not more than New York, but I went to school here and I fell in love with Boston and I moved here.
I did the same.
This is kind of part of the story. And the other part of the story is that I worked in publishing for 20 years, 20 plus years. So I'm a career changer.
Right.
And I bring up these 2 points to illustrate that it's very important, number one, to love where you live, or at least like it, hopefully love it. And number two, to enjoy your work.
Right.
It colors your whole life, those two factors. So my business, Bliss This Home, talks about another aspect, which is your home environment, which is equally important for your well-being and your happiness. Like the same importance as what you surround yourself with day by day. So my business, I'm calling it positive interior design, and it sort of combines positive psychology, interior design, design psychology, environmental psychology. It's sort of, it's research based. It's like there are studies that show how we react to our surroundings. And I'm applying that rather than just suggesting, wouldn't this color be nice? And you know,
should
whatever.
have that kind of
this is really
couch and-
trendy right now. It's not about that at all. It's about what would enhance your well-being to be surrounded with day by day, because you start every day in your home, you end every day in your home, and
It's your sanctuary.
It should be a sanctuary, and it affects your whole life. The way you set foot out the door, like the way you enter your home, is it relaxing for you or stressful for you?
Right.
So I work with clients to create an environment that will enhance their well-being, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally,
Right.
relationships.
Right. And you mentioned before, this is a career shift for
It
you.
is.
Something that I know you've mentioned you've always been interested in.
I have been,
and,
yeah.
And you don't use the term psychology lightly, because when we spoke, you said you actually studied this and married the two, your love of interior design
Yes.
and this new interest to do something new. And I found that
Exactly.
really interesting, is now
Yeah.
that just you had this idea, well, we'll have happy psychology in the home, because that can sound a little buzz termy.
It's a new kind of angle on interior
Right.
design. There's not a whole lot of people doing it.
Right.
It's about 10, 15 years old maybe.
Right.
And I am a career changer, and so it's kind of a new thing.
You know, it's interesting that you say this. I'm an ergonomist besides being an
That's right,
occupational therapist. And I'm active in a technical group called Environmental Design. And one of my
Right.
colleagues in the Netherlands does a lot of work with making sure that you have plants in your home.
It's very important. It's important.
Very important. So would that be something that
It is.
an
There's
example?
research studies
Yeah,
about nature. I
right.
remember talking before the program about a painting you did, a mural with nature to inspire
For
workers.
bank workers who
Yeah.
are stuck there all night.
Yeah, it's been shown, research has shown that there are tremendous benefits to viewing nature, being in nature. So, and it's whether we realize it or not, it's having a positive effect on us. So
Right.
just to put some plants in your house or some flowers, even pick photos of
Yeah.
nature places you visited, Grand Canyon, whatever.
I'm sure my
It's-
boyfriend is loving this, because he always wants to put plants in our room. And we
Okay.
have this constant tug of war, because I don't want a lot of plants.
After the
and he
show,
needs them,
that's where you're
so
going.
I think
Research
I've lost
shows.
this argument
Yeah.
officially. And it's taped, so he has to prove.
There's a lot of research. Like architects and designers mostly started applying the research to hospitals, schools, offices. How do we help people collaborate better? How do we help patients heal faster?
Right.
How do we keep prisoners calm in the jails? So there's research about how our psychology is reacting to the things around us, but it hasn't really been applied to homes very much, which is what I'm trying to do. Because that's everybody has a home if we're lucky,
Right.
they're
and
lucky.
if they're lucky.
Right.
I know your art speaks to that, but those of us with a home, it should be a sanctuary, and we should really reap the benefits available to us.
So how do you do that? Do you go into a person's home, you talk to them?
I do. I generally start with a questionnaire, because I sort of have to understand what a person's values are, where they're coming from, what their history is. I want to know some of their highs and lows in life, mostly highs. I want to know like your peak experiences, your accomplishments, your successes, what you're proud of, because when we surround ourselves with that, it builds us up, the confidence, and just being comfortable with who you are. It's a lot of psychology about that sort of stuff. So I have to ask a lot of questions and sort of figure out how they want to use each room. Like, how do you spend your time here? Like, let's make it conducive to that. You want a family space? Okay, is there enough seating for everyone? Like, does everybody in the family like being in this room? If that person doesn't, why? Let's include them. If a relationship is the goal. If it's privacy, let's make it private and quiet, and you want to get your work done there, let's make it conducive to your objectives. So each room has a function, each home, and it's very customized. It's not like a formula, do X, Y, Z for every person that will make you happy.
Right. And I remember when we first met, I asked, so it's not like feng shui
No.
at all, because I think you could mislabel it in that
People
way.
think about that a lot, because when I say I enhance well-being and happiness,
yeah.
Feng Shui claims the same thing. To me, I'm not an expert in that, but to me that seems a little almost cosmological. You kind of lay a map over your home, and in the northwest corner, I'm making this up, but you have to put a plant here and a crystal here and a mirror here.
Yeah.
And it changes the flow of energy. And okay, maybe, and it works for a lot of people, but this is all based on psychology
Right.
and research on how we react to things, stimuli, smells, sounds, colors, movement, textures.
And
I
it's
mean,
also
there's
very-
research.
Yeah, and it's also, your approach is very individualized.
It
And I
is.
remember you were saying, you know, with friends, they would say to you, oh, you know, I love your home. It's so happy. Can you do that for me?
Yeah, that's
And-
actually one of the reasons I switched. Like when I was thinking about new careers, it occurred to me that I've been a homeowner for 20 years, and every time somebody visits, they're just like, oh, I'm so comfy here. It's so relaxing. You have such a happy home. I love it here.
So what is it? Because I want my home to be happy.
Well, and I always scratch my head and I say, isn't your home like this? Like not like
have a
my
happy
home,
home.
but don't you
Sort
feel
of.
that way in your home? And a lot of people don't. So I kind of scratched my head and I said, not everybody's doing this. Maybe I can help. And they used to joke, yeah, can you do it to my home? And some of my first clients were friends saying, you got to come and fix my office. And, you know, my place is a mess and I need some help. I don't know where to start. So that's kind of how I.
And it's not necessarily you going and saying, okay, well, you know, we're going to repaint this and we're going to organize that.
It has to come from the client.
Exactly.
Like I kind of probe and figure out what will enhance that person's well-being.
Right.
It's not about what I like. It's not about, and it's not what a designer likes. It's not what's in a magazine.
Right.
It's not any of that. I mean, it's based on research. It's like, well, you're probably reacting to that. That is a bad association for you, that color or that picture or that item, and it's drumming up things for you. Let's get rid of that. Or, you know, well, you mentioned you like softness, and that's a very angled piece of furniture, so that's probably jarring your brain a little. Like, what about something like this? Every item, every scenario has an effect on us, and when you kind of pick it apart, you can see what's working and what's not working, and hopefully I can help people, you know, create a more uplifting space, because you're there every day. It's important. It's your sanctuary. I mean, the world is a stressful place. You need to come home. You should not be stressed at home. You should come and go, ah.
Yeah, as you were saying earlier, I think one thing that stuck with me is it's important to surround yourself with happy memories, things that have a personal connection to something in your life. And I thought about that, and I don't have a lot of decorations necessarily in my home, but what I do have are a lot of pictures or little trinkets. I don't really like little trinkets because I think they're clutter, but then I think, well, but this person got this for me when they were vacationing, and I house sat, and that's kind of a sweet memory that they were happy, and it's a cat, and I like cats, so that was, you know, so I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense to me.
It does.
That approach, and I don't apply it to the fullest, but
even though there's no formula for everyone, it's a good rule of thumb to surround yourself with what you consider beautiful, useful, joyful, or meaningful. Like this, why do you have this item? Oh, so-and-so gave that to me, I love it. Why do you have that? Oh, look at it, I love that picture. Like you should be able to point to everything and know why you have it, and it's enhancing your well-being and your happiness to have it. Otherwise, like, oh, I never really liked that. Why you have it? Get rid of it. Well, my mother gave me that. I should keep it. No, not if you don't love it. She'll understand.
So more obligation versus.
Well, for some people, it's obligation, but you just need to be deliberate about almost everything in your home. I mean, we all need some functional items. I'm not in love with my hairbrush, but but if something's like stressing you out or has a bad association, why is it in your house? Like you get to control your house. You don't get to control everything in the outside world that might be stressing you out, but this is your home.
You know, I never thought about it. I think I have a happy home.
I
was thinking about that because I live in the dormitory at Boston University, and I have students come over every Wednesday night, and I've really tried to create it with items that they will find interesting, that makes me happy, things that I can share from my life, and games. We play Bananagrams, Apples to Apples.
Your DVD collection is
my
very
DVD
extensive.
connection. Yeah, the students love moving.
I remember last time I was there,
What happened?
A student was in your guest room, and he comes out. He was a really nice kid. He comes in with this children's book, and he is lit up.
The Gift, yeah.
He was so excited. He goes, Karen, this is amazing. I haven't seen this since my childhood.
And then, see?
someone
You
else
spread
came
the
over
happiness.
and they
It
read
was
to each
great,
other.
and actually, this ties into you. I actually have an original illustration from that book.
It's a
'Cause
wonderful book.
I love it's beautiful. The gift, I love it. Barbara LaValle is the illustrator. So I actually surround myself with paintings
Yeah.
and what I call artifacts from traveling.
Excellent.
But it makes me feel happy. But it makes me feel happy to see other people
Okay.
enjoying those items
Okay.
too.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm going to give myself give myself an
And
A.
you do wonders with the standard dormitory furniture.
Really?
That they give you.
I have a hard time
That is
picturing
not-
all this in
that
the
is
dorm.
not the most comfortable, but when you get a fair amount of people in there and you're all cooking food together, and
I used
there's
to
such an eclectic
dress up my
mix.
dorms too. I mean, everybody's issued the standard white walls, whatever dimensions it is, dorm.
Right.
It had to be homey for me.
Yeah.
And I had to change the curtains. That was my closet door was a curtain. I had to change the curtain. Had to have nice bedding and all that.
Yeah.
So it's important.
Well, so you have a whole nother target audience there too.
Oh, the
college
dorm
students.
people.
No,
especially
well,
in Boston.
Yeah, college students and roommates. So
Pretty
how,
happy.
But how do you take two roommates together and make them happy
Well,
together? Right.
That's true in
Fair amount of
households too.
negotiation.
A lot of
or your
negotiation.
half and my half.
right. And we could have some of your paintings there.
Students would like my paintings, I
They're
think.
great.
Young people love them because they remind them sometimes of anime.
Oh, I love anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lot of Japanese students visit my studio once, and they were very connected to the cartoon aspect.
And you were just in Japan.
Yes, I was.
Was there more inspiration after coming back for doing something different from being in Japan?
Well, I've been interested in Japan for many, many years, and so I think that the influences have been with me all along, so it's not like a sudden thing. I mean, Japan is a clash of very old traditional arts and gardens and, kimonos and textiles and ceramics, but also the very most avant-garde fashion, architecture, pop culture. So I'm interested in the highs and the lows of culture in my work. So that's one of the things about Japan that fascinates me. And I don't really know how this particular trip will change it, but time will tell.
Oh, that's great. Time, and we're out of time.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, both.
Karen and Tracy. And to follow up with both of these wonderful women, you can visit Karen's website, KarenMoss.com. You can visit Tracy's website, BlissThisHome.com. And we hope that you investigate and learn more. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is Lifestyle by Design. We put this program on Thursdays as part of a program at the Brookline Interactive Group Studios, Thursday Night Live. You could join this program and do what we do. If you have a show idea, we're happy to promote because we have so much fun doing this and sharing with the community.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye-bye.